week. So for the past few weeks at Kids Church, we have been talking about what it means to be strong in the Lord. And we have been talking about a man named Samson. And if you remember, Samson had two things in his life that kind of led to some trouble. The first thing was, sometimes Samson told the truth, and sometimes Samson told lies. Now, if you have another friend with you who you can play a game with, I want you to take a second and pause the video and play two truths and a lie. In this game, you tell two things that are true about you and one thing that is a lie. So I'm going to share three things myself, and I want you guys to take a second and guess which one is the lie. All right? So the first thing is, I really like French fries. They are so yummy. They're one of my favorite foods. The next thing is, I really love to go swimming. All right, are you ready for the third thing? The third thing is, I really love coffee. I drink coffee every single morning. All right, take a second and think. Which one do you think is a lie? The truth is, I don't really like to go swimming that much. I will sometimes, but I don't really love it. So I want you guys to take a second and think. Have you ever told a lie that led you into a bad situation? I know I have at different points in my life, and I'm sure we all have, whether we got caught telling a lie or a lie led to something happening that we didn't think would happen. There's been so many different situations where lies can lead us into trouble. Now, Samson had one other thing in his life that led him into trouble, and it's something that you might not think of as being trouble, and that was riddles. So Samson liked to tell riddles. I'm going to tell a couple riddles to you guys. The first riddle is, what gets wetter as it dries? What gets wetter as it dries? The answer is a towel. Towels get more wet as they dry you, or whatever it is they're drying. The second one is, what must be broken before you can use it? The answer is an egg. All right, this last one is a little bit tricky. What has a face and two arms but no legs? The answer is a clock. So riddles are a lot of fun, but in our story today, we'll hear about how riddles led Samson into a bad situation. So in the years before Samson was born, Israel had many judges or leaders. Israel would forget about God, and they would start living lives of trouble, and their country would go into chaos. And then they would start following God again. Eventually, God's people would cry out to him, and he would send them a judge or a leader to help the people defeat their enemies. So Gideon was Israel's leader before Samson was born. But after Gideon died, Israel again forgot about God, and they started to lead a life that got them into trouble, and that got them a lot of enemies. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to a man named Manoah and his wife. The angel promised that they would have a son, and he would be named Samson. God promised them that Samson would save their people and that he would be one of the strongest people in the world. How strong do you think Samson would have been? So I brought some weights with me today. I want you to take a second and think, how strong do you think Samson was? Goodness, how much weight do you think Samson could lift? Probably a lot more than me. But as God was giving them his strength and had this amazing plan for his life, God told his parents some different things to do that would set Samson apart. God told them that Samson would be a Nazarite. And part of that would be Samson would only eat certain kinds of foods, and that he would never cut his hair. Imagine how long Samson's hair would have gotten. Well, when Samson grew up, he fell in love with a Philistine woman and told his parents that he wanted to marry her. His parents traveled with him to meet her, and on the way, a lion jumped out and was about to attack them. But remember, Samson was one of the strongest people who've ever lived, and Samson killed the lion with his bare hands. Later, when they were returning on the same road from Samson's wedding, he saw the dead lion, and he noticed that some bees were inside the lion. And he noticed that the bees were making honey. And Samson took some of the honey, and he ate it. Samson and the Philistine woman were married, and at their wedding feast, he told a riddle to some of the Philistine men. Now the riddle was, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Can you guys guess what the answer to this riddle is? A lion. It was the lion that he killed. So the Philistine men couldn't figure out the answer to Samson's riddle. So they went and they asked Samson's new wife what the answer to the riddle was. And she didn't know. So they told her to go and to ask Samson and to get the answer and come back to them with the answer. And guess what? She did. Samson got so mad, he ended up leaving the wedding and he ended up leaving his wife. But later on, Samson ended up coming back for his wife and trying to make up with his wife, and he found that his wife was gone. She went and she married another Philistine man. How do you think Samson felt? Samson was really angry. He was so angry that he burned a bunch of the fields that belonged to the Philistines. He burned all of their crops. Now, how do you think the Philistines felt? They were really mad. They were so mad that they wanted to kill Samson. But Samson escaped to another town where he fell in love with a woman named Delilah. Delilah sent word to the Philistines that Samson was there. And they asked Delilah to figure out what was the answer to Samson's strength. So Delilah went to Samson and she asked him, Samson, how are you so strong? She asked Samson 3 times. And 3 times he told her a lie. He first told her that if he was bound with 7 fresh cords, his strength would leave him. So that night, Delilah bound him with cords as he was sleeping, and they came in to capture him as he broke through the cords and he defeated the Philistines. Second, he told her that if he was to be tied up with new ropes, that he would never become weak. So that night, Delilah tied him up with brand new ropes. And guess what? When the Philistines came in, he broke right through those ropes again. Third, he told her that if the braids of his head were woven together, he would become weak. But none of those answers were true. Does anyone know what made Samson strong? Remember, God had set Samson set apart from the time that he was born. The angel told his parents that his hair must never be cut. If Samson was to cut his hair, he would lose his special strength. Delilah finally wore Samson down, so he told her the truth. That night, Delilah sent word to the Philistines, and while Samson was sleeping, she went and she cut his hair. When the Philistines rushed in to capture Samson, he tried to fight them off, but his strength was completely gone. The Philistines blinded Samson, and they threw him in prison. It sounds like everything is going wrong in God's rescue plan. Do you think that God was surprised by any of this? I don't think so. God was always in control of Samson's story, even when it seemed like Samson wasn't. God would still use Samson for his glory and to do amazing things for Israel. While Samson was in prison, his hair finally began to grow back. One day, while the Philistines were in their temple worshiping their false god, they decided to bring Samson in. So they brought him in, he was all tied up, and they started to make fun of Samson and to hurt Samson. And Samson started to pray, and he said, "O sovereign Lord, remember me. Oh God, please strengthen me just once more." Let's read from God's word what happens next. Samson reached toward the two pillars that were holding up the building. And as he started to lean on them, his strength came back. He said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all of his might, and down came the temple and the rulers and all of the people in it. See, God used Samson to accomplish his purpose. Even when he was in a bad situation and even in his last moments of life, God still used Samson to save the people of Israel. And he did it through God's strength. So let's see if any of you remember the Bible verse. If you can come and say it to me on Sunday, if you can send me a video saying it, I am going to give you guys a prize. So our Bible verse is Ephesians 6:10. It says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might." All right, we're going to say it one more time. Ephesians 6:10. "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might." All right, Kids Life, I hope you guys have a good week. I'll see you next time.